Hi, and welcome to Ginger English. I'm Sarah, joined as always by Marcus, and today we have an A2 level podcast for you. Okay, so imagine this. You're cleaning out your grandmother's old house. It's a hot summer day in Texas. The house is quiet, dusty, you're tired, you just want to finish and go home. And then you find a box. It's an old box, small, brown, hidden under the floor behind a broken piece of wood. You almost missed it, but something makes you stop. Something makes you pick it up. You open it. Inside, there are letters. Old letters, maybe 50, maybe 60 of them, all written by hand. The paper is yellow. The ink is faded, but you can still read the words. And the words, they change everything. That's what happened to Mia. She was 26 years old. She grew up in a small town called Harlow, Texas. Population, maybe 2,000 people. Everyone knows everyone. No secrets. Or so she thought. Mia's grandmother, Ruth, died in April. She was 83 years old. She was a quiet woman, a good woman. She made the best pie in town. She went to church every Sunday. She had one daughter, Mia's mom, and she never, ever talked about the past. Mia never asked. Why would she? Ruth was just grandma. Simple, sweet, always smiling, always there, always the same. But that box had a different story. Mia sat down on the dusty floor of that old house. She opened the first letter. It started with 3 words, "My dearest Ruth." And she started to read. She read for hours. Outside, the sun went down. The house got dark. Mia didn't move. She just sat there on the floor, reading letter after letter after letter. By the time she finished, she had tears on her face. And she didn't fully understand why. She didn't know this man. She didn't know this story. But something about those words, the love in them, the pain in them, it hit her hard. Her grandmother, quiet little Ruth, who made apple pie and sang in the church choir, had a whole other life that no one knew about. Ruth had a secret, a big one. And it started more than 60 years ago with a man named Daniel. Who was Daniel? Why did Ruth never talk about him? Why were the letters hidden for so long? What happened between them? And why did it end? That's what we're going to find out today. And I promise you, this story has everything. Love, family pressure, hard choices, loss, and a surprise ending that neither Mia nor any of us saw coming. So get comfortable, take a breath, and stay with us, because this is going to be a really good one. Let's talk about Mia for a minute. Mia Carter, 26 years old. She worked at a small library in Harlow, Texas. She loved books, she loved quiet, and she loved her grandmother more than almost anyone in the world. Growing up, Mia spent a lot of time at Ruth's house. Every Saturday morning, every holiday, every summer, Ruth's house was the kind of place that always smelled like something good. Coffee or pie or fresh bread. It was warm. It was safe. It felt like nothing bad could ever happen there. Ruth was not a big talker. She didn't tell long stories. She didn't talk about her childhood or her parents or her life before Mia's mom was born. And Mia never pushed. It felt rude to ask. Ruth was old, and some old people just don't like to look back. That's what Mia always thought. But now, sitting on that dusty floor with a box of letters in her lap, Mia started to wonder, what else didn't she know? The letters started in 1961. Mia did the math quickly. Ruth was around 20 years old then. The letters were from a man named Daniel Pruitt. He lived in Austin, about 200 miles from Harlow. And from the very first letter, it was clear. This was not just a friendship. I think about you every single day, Daniel wrote in one of the early letters. I close my eyes and I see your face. I don't know what to do with that feeling, Ruth. I only know that it's real. Mia read that and stopped. She read it again. She tried to imagine her grandmother, old, quiet Ruth, as a young woman reading those words, getting that letter in the mail, holding it in her hands. It was strange and beautiful and a little heartbreaking. She kept reading. The letters went back and forth. Ruth's letters were not in the box, only Daniel's. But from his replies, Mia could understand what Ruth was writing to him. Ruth was happy. Ruth was in love. Ruth was making plans. Daniel wrote about the future. He wanted to move to Harlow, or maybe they could both move somewhere new. He wanted to meet her family. He wanted to do things the right way. He used the word forever more than once. And then, around 1963, something changed. The letters got shorter. Daniel's words got quieter. There was less talk about the future and more talk about pain, about waiting, about not understanding what went wrong. In one letter, he wrote, "I don't understand, Ruth. Please just talk to me. Tell me what happened. Tell me why." Mia felt a cold feeling in her chest. Something had ended, something had broken, and Ruth had never explained it, not to Daniel and not to anyone else. Mia put the letters down for a moment. She looked around the old quiet house, the walls, the furniture, the small photos on the shelf. All of it suddenly looked different, like she was seeing it for the first time. She picked up her phone. She called her mom. "Mom," she said, "did Grandma ever talk about someone named Daniel?" There was a long pause on the other end. "Where did you hear that name?" her mom said. Her voice was different, careful, like she was choosing every word. And Mia knew her mom knew something.
So Mia called her mom, and her mom didn't say anything for a long time. That silence. You know that kind of silence. When someone is not looking for words, they are deciding how much to say, deciding what is safe, deciding what stays hidden. Mia waited. Finally, her mom spoke. Her name was Carol. She was 54 years old. She lived about 30 minutes from Harlow. She was a practical woman, organized, not very emotional. She didn't cry at movies. She didn't talk about feelings much. But right now, her voice was shaking just a little. "Where did you find that name?" Carol asked again. "In Grandma's house," Mia said. "Under the floor. There's a box, Mom, full of letters. From a man named Daniel Pruitt, from Austin. They go from 1961 to 1963. Another silence. "Mom, talk to me." Carol took a long breath. "I only know a little," she said. "Grandma never told me the full story, but when I was young, maybe 15, I found a photo in her closet, a photo of her with a young man. They were laughing. She looked so happy. I had never seen her look like that." Mia sat up straighter. "What did you do?" "I asked her about it. I just walked in and asked, 'Mom, who is this man?' And she went completely still, like I hit her. She took the photo from my hand and said, 'That is nobody. That is the past,' and she never talked about it again." Mia closed her eyes. Nobody. That is the past. But Daniel wasn't nobody. Mia could feel that in every single letter. He was someone very important to Ruth. Maybe the most important person in her life at that time. "Did Grandma ever say anything else?" Mia asked. "Anything at all?" Carol was quiet for a moment. "Once. I was maybe 20. We had a little too much wine at Christmas. And Grandma said something strange. 'Carol, sometimes family makes choices for you, and you live with those choices forever.' Then she stopped and never said another word about it. Family makes choices for you." Mia looked down at the box. She counted the letters quickly. 53, that's a lot of words, a lot of feelings, a lot of years, and then nothing. Ruth married a different man, Mia's grandfather, Bill, a quiet farmer, a good man. They were married 40 years. Ruth never talked about Austin, never talked about Daniel. She just hid the letters under the floor and kept them there for 60 years. Why keep them at all? Why not throw them away? Mia thought about that. Maybe Ruth kept them because she needed them. Maybe on some quiet nights she opened that box and read those words, and let herself feel something she couldn't show anyone. Maybe the letters were the only place where that part of Ruth still lived. Mia wiped her eyes. She didn't even realize she was crying. "Mom," she said quietly, "I'm going to find out what happened." Carol paused. Mia, it was 60 years ago. Ruth is gone. Maybe some things are better left? No, Mia said. Simple, calm, final. She was going to find Daniel Pruitt. She didn't know how yet, but she knew she had to try.
Okay, so Mia decided to find Daniel Pruitt. But where do you even start? Think about it. The man wrote his last letter in 1963. That's more than 60 years ago. No internet back then, no social media, no way to just type a name and find someone in 2 seconds. Mia started with what she had. The letters. She read all 53 of them again, more slowly this time, more carefully. She was looking for details, anything useful, and she found some things. Daniel grew up in Austin, Texas. He worked at a small print shop near the university. He had one brother, a younger brother named Thomas. He liked jazz music. He went to church. He was saving money to buy a car. Small details, but details are a starting point. Mia went home, opened her laptop, and started searching. Daniel Pruitt, Austin, Texas. She tried everything. Old newspapers, public records, ancestry websites. She searched for hours. She found a few people with that name, but none of them were the right age. None of them matched. Then she tried a different search. Thomas Pruitt, Austin, Texas, the younger brother. And there, on an old community website for a church in Austin, she found a name, Thomas Pruitt, with a phone number. The post was from 2019. Old, but not that old. Mia stared at the number for a long time. Was this the right Thomas? Was he still alive? Was this even real? She didn't know, but she picked up her phone. It rang 4 times, 5 times. Mia was already preparing to hang up when someone answered. Hello? An old man's voice, quiet, a little slow. Hi, Mia said. Her voice was shaking. I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Mia Carter. I'm calling from Harlow, Texas. I'm looking for a Thomas Pruitt who had a brother named Daniel. Silence. Where did you get this number? The old man said. From a church website, Mia said. I'm sorry, I know this is strange, but I found some letters, old letters, from your brother to a woman named Ruth. I wanted to know what happened. The old man didn't speak. Mia could hear him breathing. Then he said very quietly, Ruth, just that one word, like he recognized it from somewhere deep inside. Yes, Mia said. Ruth, she was my grandmother. She passed away in April. Another silence. And then the old man said something Mia did not expect at all. Daniel is alive. Mia's hand tightened on the phone. Her heart stopped for just 1 second. He's 83 years old, Thomas said. He lives with me now. He had a stroke 2 years ago. He doesn't get around well, but he is alive. Mia sat down. She didn't even realize she was standing before that moment. Daniel was alive after 60 years. After all those letters, after all that silence, he was still here. Would it be okay if I came to see him? Mia said. I have his letters. I want to bring them to him. I think he should have them. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I think that would mean a lot to him. Yes. Mia closed her laptop. She looked at the box of letters on her kitchen table. She was going to Austin.
So Mia drove to Austin, 200 miles, about 3 hours by car. She left early in the morning. The box of letters was on the passenger seat next to her. She wanted it close. She didn't listen to music. She didn't listen to the radio. She just drove and thought and tried to prepare herself for something she couldn't really prepare for. What do you say to a man like that? What do you say to someone who loved your grandmother 60 years ago and never got an answer, never got an explanation, just silence? She didn't know. She figured she would find the words when she got there. Thomas lived in a small yellow house on the east side of Austin. Quiet street, big trees, a porch with 2 chairs. Mia parked in front and sat in the car for a few minutes, just breathing. Then she picked up the box and she walked to the door. Thomas opened it before she could knock. He was maybe 78 years old. Small man, white hair, warm eyes. He looked at her, then at the box in her hands. Something moved across his face, not quite a smile, something softer. "You must be Mia," he said. "Yes, thank you for letting me come." He opened the door wider. "He's in the living room. He knows you're coming. He didn't sleep much last night." Mia followed Thomas inside. The house was warm and clean. It smelled like coffee. There were photos on the walls, family photos, old and new, and on a small table near the window she saw it. A single photo in a wooden frame. A young woman, laughing. Dark hair, bright eyes. Ruth. Mia stopped walking. Her grandmother, maybe 19 or 20 years old, more alive in that photo than in any picture Mia had ever seen of her. "He kept it all these years," Thomas said quietly. "Never put it away." Mia couldn't speak for a moment. Then she walked into the living room. Daniel was sitting in a big chair near the window. He was thin. His hands shook a little. From the stroke, probably. But his eyes were sharp, aware, present. He looked at Mia, then at the box. His face changed completely. "Are those—" he started. His voice was slow, a little difficult, but clear. "Yes," Mia said. She sat down across from him and put the box on the table between them. "They're yours. They were always yours." Daniel reached out one shaking hand and touched the top of the box, very gently, like it might break, or like he might break. "I'm Mia," she said. "Ruth was my grandmother." Daniel looked up at her. His eyes were wet. "She passed away in April," Mia said softly. "I found these under the floor of her house. She kept every single one." Daniel didn't say anything for a long time. He just sat there with his hand on the box. Outside, a bird was singing. The house was very quiet. Then he said, "I always wondered, did she ever think about me?" Mia felt her throat tighten. "She kept 53 letters hidden under her floor for 60 years, Mia said. "I think that's your answer." A tear ran down Daniel's face. He didn't wipe it away. And Mia thought, This is why she drove 200 miles. This moment. This old man, finally knowing that he was not forgotten. So Daniel talked. It took a little time. His speech was slow after the stroke. He stopped sometimes, looking for a word, but he talked, and Mia listened. She didn't rush him. She just sat there, with the box of letters between them, and listened. This is what Daniel told her. He met Ruth in the summer of 1960. He was visiting a friend in Harlow for a weekend, just 2 days. He almost didn't go. He was busy with work. He was tired. He didn't feel like driving, but his friend pushed him. So he went. He met Ruth at a small dance on a Saturday night. She was wearing a yellow dress. She was laughing at something her friend said, and Daniel, he said he just stopped, right in the middle of the room. He couldn't look away. They talked all night. They danced. When it was time for Daniel to drive back to Austin, they stood outside for a long time, not wanting to say goodbye. Ruth gave him her address. He wrote to her 3 days later, and that was the beginning. For 2 years they wrote letters back and forth. Every week, sometimes more. Daniel drove to Harlow when he could, maybe once a month. They walked together, they talked for hours, they made plans. Daniel wanted to marry her, he was sure. He had never been so sure about anything. And Ruth felt the same way. He could see it. He could feel it in her letters, in the way she looked at him when he visited. She was happy. They were happy. But Ruth's family, and that was a different story. Ruth's father was a strict man, very traditional, very focused on what other people in Harlow thought. And Daniel was from Austin. He was not from their church. He was not from their world. Ruth's father didn't like him from the first time they met. He was polite, but cold, and very clear. He didn't want Daniel near his daughter. Ruth tried. She really tried. She argued with her father. She told him that she loved Daniel. She told him that she was 20 years old and she could make her own choices. Her father said, "You live in my house, you follow my rules, and if you don't, you have nothing." In 1963, Ruth's father found a man for her, a local man, a farmer named Bill. Good family, good name. From the same church. Everything her father wanted. He told Ruth, "You will marry Bill." That is the end of this conversation. And Ruth, she broke. Not because she wanted to, but because she was scared. She had no money of her own, no job, no way to live without her family. She was alone, and the pressure was enormous. She stopped writing to Daniel. No explanation, no goodbye letter, just silence. Daniel wrote to her for months after that, confused, hurting, asking what happened, asking why, but Ruth never answered. And eventually, Daniel stopped writing too. "I thought she stopped loving me," Daniel said quietly. He was looking at the box of letters. "I thought I was wrong about everything, about her, about us." He paused. "But she kept them. he said, almost to himself. She kept everyone. Mia nodded. She didn't trust her voice right now. She didn't stop loving you, Mia said finally. She just had no way out, and I think she never stopped regretting it. Daniel closed his eyes, and for a long moment the room was completely still.
And then Thomas walked in from the kitchen. He had 2 cups of coffee. He put them on the table quietly. He looked at his brother. He looked at Mia. Then he sat down in the chair by the door. "Tell her the rest," Thomas said to Daniel. His voice was gentle, but firm. Daniel looked up. "Thomas, she came 200 miles," Thomas said. "She deserves to know all of it." Mia looked from one brother to the other. "What rest? What else is there?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. He looked at the box. Then he looked at Mia. And he said something that changed everything. "Ruth did write to me," Daniel said. "One last time. In 1965. Mia went very still. 1965? But the last letter in the box is from 1963. I read all of them. "She didn't send it to this address," Daniel said slowly. "By 1965, I had moved. She didn't have my new address, so she sent the letter to my parents' house." He paused. "My father opened it." Mia felt something cold move through her. "He never gave it to you," she said. It wasn't a question. "No. He and my mother never liked Ruth. They thought she was wrong for me. They were glad when it ended." He stopped. "I only found out about the letter years later, after my father died. My mother told me. Maybe she thought enough time had passed." "What did the letter say?" Mia asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. "Ruth was pregnant," he said. "When she married Bill, the baby, it was mine." The room went completely silent. Mia couldn't breathe. She just sat there, trying to understand what she had just heard. Ruth was pregnant with Daniel's baby. She married Bill, and Bill raised that child as his own. That child was Carol, Mia's mother. "My mother," Mia said slowly. The words felt heavy and enormous. She's your... "Yes," Daniel said quietly, "if what Ruth wrote was true. And I have no reason to think she would lie, not in a letter like that." Mia put her hands on her face, just breathing, trying to hold all of this at once. Her grandmother Ruth, Daniel, 60 years of silence, a letter that never arrived, a secret so big that Ruth carried it completely alone for the rest of her life. And Carol, her mom, had no idea. She had lived her whole life without knowing. "She never told anyone," Mia said, just saying it out loud, trying to make it real. "No," Daniel said. "It was a different time. Different rules. She did what she had to do. And she lived with it." He touched the box again. All those years, alone. Mia looked at the old man in front of her, 83 years old, shaking hands, and eyes that had just learned more truth in 1 hour than in 60 years. "She loved you," Mia said. "She really loved you. And I think she wanted you to know. That's why she kept the letters, so that someday someone would find them and someone would come." Daniel looked at her, and this time he didn't try to stop the tears.
So, that's the story. A box of letters under a floor. A young woman in a yellow dress at a Saturday night dance. Two people who loved each other, and a world that made it almost impossible for them to stay together. And 60 years later, a granddaughter who drove 200 miles to make sure the story didn't stay hidden forever. I think about Mia a lot. What she did took courage. It would have been easy to put that box back under the floor. Easy to say, this is the past, it doesn't matter, let it go. A lot of people would have done exactly that, but Mia didn't. She read every letter, she made the calls, she drove to Austin, she sat with an old man she had never met and gave him something he had waited 60 years for, the truth. And what about Carol, Mia's mom? Mia called her that same evening, driving back from Austin. She pulled over on the side of the road and told her mom everything. All of it. Daniel, the pregnancy, the letter that never arrived. Carol was silent for a very long time. Then she said, I need some time. And that was okay. That's not just a family secret. That's your whole understanding of who you are, where you come from. That takes time. But a few weeks later, Carol called Mia back. She said she wanted to meet Daniel. She wasn't angry. She wasn't scared. She just wanted to know, wanted to see his face, wanted to sit in that small yellow house in Austin and have coffee with the man who loved her mother 60 years ago. And she did. I don't know what they talked about. That part is private. And it should be, but Thomas told Mia later that when Carol left, Daniel sat by the window for a long time, and he looked peaceful, like something tight inside him had finally, slowly, let go. Ruth kept 53 letters for 60 years, never threw them away, never talked about them, just kept them hidden under the floor of a house in a small Texas town. Maybe she always hoped someone would find them. Maybe it was her way of saying, this happened. This was real. This man loved me and I loved him. Even if I could never say it out loud. And now, it's out loud. Daniel knows, Carol knows, Mia knows, and you know. I think Ruth would be okay with that. Real human life is so much more complicated and beautiful and heartbreaking than we think. The people around us carry whole worlds inside them that we never see. Your grandmother, your grandfather, your parents. They all have stories, stories from before you existed, stories they never told. So if you have someone older in your life, call them, visit them, ask questions, listen. You never know what you might learn. That's our show for today. If this story moved you, please share it. Send it to a friend. Leave us a comment. We read every single one. And if you're new here, welcome to Ginger English. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're here every week with a new story and a new reason to listen. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time.